Matt Day here with Parsons, Graham & Day, still talking about protective orders because of the volume that we deal with here in our office, not only in Tulsa County, but in surrounding counties. Now, frequently the protective order comes in with a family case, a paternity action or a divorce action, right? At the end of those cases, a lot of times the protective order will be dismissed in exchange for a mutual or civil restraining order. And so the question that I get asked frequently is, what is the difference between a civil restraining order or a mutual restraining order and a protective order? All right. Well, a couple things. If you have a protective order, whether it's an emergency or a final, and the person who is the defendant or the respondent in that violates the protective order, okay, they come to your house, they call your phone, they send you a text, they send you an email, all right, you can call the police and the police will make a report. If the situation is ongoing, for instance, the person is outside your house, they will typically come to your house and arrest that person for a violation of protective order. Violation of protective order is a crime in the state of Oklahoma, initially starting out as a misdemeanor, and after so many convictions, then it can become a felony, right? So if you have a protective order, you can call the police and they will come to the scene because violating the protective order is a crime. Civil restraining order is a little bit different. You may be able to call the police and they may show up or they may not show up, all right? However, you still have the opportunity to prosecute the violator of a civil restraining order through an action in front of the judge that is handling your case, and that would be a contempt action. Contempt is just a willful violation of the court's order, all right? And so you would present an application for contempt citation. The judge would then set an arraignment date, and the defendant, respondent to the civil restraining order, would have to show up and enter a plea, typically initially of not guilty, and then they could either enter a plea of guilty or no contest, or they could have a trial, a jury trial or a non-jury trial. At the conclusion of that, if the court finds that the defendant willfully violated a court order, then that person can be put in jail for up to 6 months with a $500 fine. Another difference there, though, is when a crime is being prosecuted, the defendant does not hold the keys to the jail cell. In a contempt action, the defendant does hold the keys to the jail cell most often. And the reason I say that is the contempt that you're bringing, the contempt in front of the judge that granted you the civil restraining order, is in an effort to get the defendant to obey the order. So putting that person in jail is not actually a punishment, it is a coercion to follow the order, which means if the defendant will follow the order, they can get themselves out of jail. All right, so those are really the big differences between a protective order and a civil restraining order or a mutual restraining order, depending on how it's phrased. Protective order has more immediate police action and has the state prosecuting crimes. A civil restraining order can provide you with the same language of protection, except that enforcement typically would fall upon you. All right? If you find yourself in a situation in which you may need a restraining order or a protective order, hire yourself an attorney. Give us a call at 918-307-1529. The purpose of this video is to be informative and not to provide legal advice. For legal advice, call a law firm and speak to an attorney about your particular case. None of the information provided in here is meant to establish an attorney-client relationship between Parsons, Graham & Day and anyone watching this video.